Running a business means I wear lots of hats. Luckily, when it's time to put on my hiring hat, I can count on LinkedIn to make it easy. I can post a job for free or pay to promote it and get 3 times more qualified candidates. Imagine finding your next great hire in 24 hours. 86% of small businesses do. With LinkedIn, I can also easily share my job with my network. No other job site lets me do that. Post your free job at linkedin.com/achieve. That's linkedin.com/achieve. Terms and conditions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso. Gift magical mornings with Nespresso Virtuo Pop. Compact and stylish, Virtuo Pop is made to meet every morning coffee craving. From espresso to coffee, hot or iced, at the click of a button. And celebrate the season with Nespresso's limited edition coffee flavors. Sweet almond and hibiscus, cinnamon and candied tamarind, and festive double espresso. Magic in the making. Shop the holiday gift collection exclusively at Nespresso.com.
Introducing Oakley Meta Vanguard, the new performance AI glasses designed for athletes. With hands-free capture on an action-ready ultra-wide camera, powerful open-ear speakers, and built-in Meta AI that syncs with your Garmin devices for real-time insights while you train. Take your performance to the next level with Oakley Meta Vanguard. Athletic intelligence is here. Learn more on meta.com.
This episode is brought to you by 20th Century Studios' upcoming comedy, Ella McKay. From Academy Award-winning writer-director James L. Brooks, Emma Mackey plays Ella McKay, an idealistic young woman who juggles family and work in a story about the people you love and how to survive them. Featuring an all-star cast including Jamie Lee Curtis, Jack Lowden, Kumail Nanjiani, Io Adebri, Julie Kavner, with Albert Brooks and Woody Harrelson. Ella McKay, in theaters December 12.
Did my card go through?
Oh no.
Your small business depends on its internet, so switch to Verizon Business. And you can get LTE business internet starting at $39 a month when paired with select business mobile plans. That's unlimited data for unlimited business.
There we go.
Get the internet you need at the price you want. Verizon Business. Starting price for LTE business internet, 25 megabits per second unlimited data plan with select Verizon Business smartphone plan savings. Terms apply.
Hey there, Duke fans. Episode 122 of DBR Bites. We're here on Thursday, November 20th. We have a Brotherhood Run to discuss. We're going to discuss not one, but 2 games coming up this weekend. But first, I am Donald Wine. I'm your host for this DBR Bites. I have Jason Evans with me. Jason, excited for another weekend of college basketball, but this time we get 2 games in the span of, 48 hours?
Yeah, something like that. Actually, you know what? If you're someone in Durham, it's 3 games because Niagara and Howard will be playing each other on Saturday. And I mean, look, I know we're all Duke fans here, and that's why we listen to the podcast, and that's why we go to Cameron and such. But you can do worse than going out and supporting those 2 programs that are very, very close to the Brotherhood.
And I'm not sure how this overlaps with the game on Saturday, but there also is a Duke UNC football game. Go to hell, Carolina, go to hell, every day of the week. And definitely on Saturday, as the Brotherhood Run happens, you'll have the Duke football game on. They're in Chapel Hill. That's at 3:30 p.m. Eastern time. So if you have a ticket, if you dare to go to Chapel Hill, bring back a victory for us so we can become bowl eligible. But on this episode, we're going to talk about the 2 Brotherhood Run games. Of course, Duke takes on Niagara on Friday. Jason, as you mentioned, Niagara and Howard will then play each other on Saturday, and then Duke will round it out with the game against Howard in Cameron on Sunday afternoon. The way we're going to do this, we're going to start with the Niagara preview, and then we'll take a break, and we'll come back and do the Howard preview since it's one game then the other. So we'll start with the Niagara Purple Eagles out of the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference, or as they say, the MAC. It's not the MAC. It's not Maction, but it's the MAC, like I'm a goat or something. But really, what's about Niagara is they are coached by Greg Paulus, obviously a member of the Brotherhood, graduated in 2008, question mark, Jason? Like, I feel like 2008 is old, but he's not. He's younger. He's younger than me, but he was in the program for 4 years. And as they entered this game, they are 2-2 right now. They played at Duquesne. They lost 83-63. They played at Binghamton, where they won by 8. They have had one home game, that's against Delaware State. They won that game by 11. And then just recently, they were at Lemoyne, and they lost that game by 6. So, Jason, as we get into the metrics, talk about what Niagara does good, what they do terribly. But as we look at them, 316th at KenPom, they are not a great team so far this year.
No, they certainly are not. And look, Niagara hasn't had a team ranked in the top 100 in KenPom since 2009. And most of those years, they've been lower than like 250th in the advanced metrics. Sometimes they pop up a little bit, but for the most part, this is a program that just, they struggle to get out of the bottom 100 or so in college basketball. They were picked this season. You mentioned they're in the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference, the MAAC. They're picked 12th out of the 13 teams in the MAAC this year. That's not good. And you kind of, look, I love you, Greg Paulus. You kind of starting to wonder how much longer he has there. This is not a program where like winning is paramount and, immediate pressure to win and the such. But Greg's been there for a little while, and it's sort of becoming apparent that for probably a lot of reasons that have to do with NIL and things like that, Niagara just is going to struggle to compete with teams that are even in the top half of Division I basketball. Let's get to the metrics like you asked. Niagara is a team that plays very slow, especially on offense. Their overall tempo, and admittedly, look, everything we're going to talk about, we're only like 4 or 5 games into the season. But so far, their overall tempo is 350th in the land. They're one of the 20 slowest teams in the sport. And again, especially on offense, they take their time. They're also very small. This is one of the 10 worst offensive rebounding teams in the country. They are really, when they put up a shot, they're basically dropping back on defense immediately. They're barely going for offensive rebounds. They only grab 20% of their missed shots. They do a nice job, by the way, of gang rebounding on defense. Like they're a good defensive rebounding team. It's sort of, one of these weird circumstances where a team doesn't get many offensive rebounds, but does a really nice job of defensive rebounding. So I don't know that Duke's going to be a team that's going to automatically get all the, offensive rebounds that we want, although our size is going to be a big advantage. I'll talk in a little bit about their players, and they just don't have the size to match up with Duke very much.
That's going to be a theme between both of these games, Jason.
Yes, it is. And even more so with Howard. Mm-hmm. But we're starting here on Niagara. For a smaller team, they're pretty good at not getting their shots blocked. They don't allow a lot of steals. They are very poor, though, Niagara, at defending the three-point line. Opponents are hitting almost 37% of their three-pointers against Niagara. And I went and checked. I talk about small sample size. This was also a problem for them a year ago. Now, admittedly, there's been a lot of turnover in the roster. We're going to get to, who's back and who, and all the new players and things like that. So it's not the same team, but just in terms of style and in terms of how things work, they were bad at defending the three-point line a year ago. They're bad at defending the three-point line again this season. And also, last sort of, big theme before we get to the individual players. This is just crazy, Donald. Their free throw defense, which is not a thing.
Mm-hmm. We always joke about it on this show because it's the one thing that you really can't defend. I guess Cameron can, right? Crazies can be a part of that, but yeah.
Yes. So the Niagara's free throw defense is terrible. They're allowing teams to hit close to 78% from the free throw line. Look, that's just randomness, that there's nothing that can be done about it. There's nothing about Niagara that causes teams to shoot better free throws, except for this. The same thing happened a year ago. Like last year, they were 364th out of 365 teams, the second worst team in all of college basketball at free throw percentage defense. And again, this year, they're one of the worst teams in the country at free throw percentage defense. It's early in the year. But look, Donald, Duke has struggled hitting free throws this year. We have talked about it on this podcast again and again and again. Niagara is a team where you can get better at hitting free throws, apparently. I can't explain that.
Well, it also, we've also seen, Jason, the corollaries in some of these teams where the team that kind of has the worst free throw defense, if you will, also is a team that fouls a lot. Is that something that you see in Niagara so far this year? And especially given the fact that they're a smaller team, is that something that, they're going to maybe try and hammer us and make us earn at the free throw line as opposed to getting those easy jumpers?
All right, so let's talk about the Niagara players very quickly. And I'm not going to get into when Duke is playing bigger power conference teams, then you're going to see me really dive into some of these players and the names and things like that. No offense to the opponent, take every opponent seriously. You and I absolutely believe in that. But I don't think, as fans of our podcast, folks need me to be doing a deep dive on the sixth man. And so anyway, the most significant player that Niagara has on their roster this year is a guy who came back from last year. He's a junior 6'5" guard, Justin Page. He is their leading scorer, around 14 points per game. Also leads the team in assists, around 3 assists per game. By the way, 3 assists per game sort of tells you Niagara is not a team where there's one guy generating all the offense. The fact their leading scorer is only 14 points per game. They got like 5 or 6 guys who are between about 8 and 12 to 14 points. So this is a team where they're not relying on one player, but the player who is the best one for them, who has been the best so far, is a guy who came back, and that's Justin Page. Most of their other players were either in community colleges, junior colleges, Division II programs a year ago. This is a team that's not full of, they're like, I think maybe 3 or 4 guys who have been on Division I rosters consistently. And that just sort of speaks to the level of talent on the team. Not saying that there are JUCO and D2 players who can come up and play at the Division I level and be very successful at it. But for Niagara, this is just, they don't have a lot of guys who right out of high school or throughout their career have been Division I talents. They've got a pair of smaller guards that I want to mention. A 6'0" guard named Reggie Prudhomme, and then a 5'9" point guard named Trenton Walters. Both those guys are hitting 50% from 3 on the season. Now, Walters hit over 40% last year from 3. So being at 50% is not crazy for him. This guy's just a really good shooter, but at 5'9", it's just going to be super hard for him to get off his shot against Duke's bigger guards. He's going to need extra space. He'll probably have to shoot a little bit further out than he's used to get off those shots because Duke's guards are so much bigger than him. But I wanted to mention that both Reggie Prudhomme and Trenton Walters are guys who look like they can, really rain down on you from 3. They don't shoot a ton of, these are not guys who are going to be taking 8, 10 threes. At least they haven't so far this year. But they're both guys who can definitely hit their 3-pointers. The tallest guy on this team is only 6'9". I'm talking about the size now, Donald. This is a big issue for them. Mm-hmm. Tallest guy is 6'9". Their tallest starter is a 6'8" kid named Will Short. I love the fact that their tallest player is named Short. Sorry, I'm easily amused. Will Short, by the way, is from New Zealand. He played at IMG Academy alongside some pretty darn good players like Donnie Freeman from Syracuse, who we're going to be talking about this season a lot. Donnie Freeman, really good player for Syracuse. Louisville's Akani Ruths. Those are some names that, if you're an ACC fan, you should recognize that. And Will Short, played for them, played for IMG, played alongside these legit D1 talents when he was in high school. So he's someone who's used to sort of playing against guys the caliber of Duke. That said, Will Short and all the Niagara big men are not super athletic. They're not the kind of physical specimens who you would think are going to have the size, the length, and the build to present, much of an obstacle to Cameron Boozer and Patrick Gongba. I think Cam and Pat's quickness, physicality, and overall skill is going to be really, really difficult for Niagara to stop. This is a theme when Duke plays these smaller schools that you're going to see again and again. Look, you and I can talk about the 3-point shooting and all the other things that Duke does really well in the perimeter, but Duke's big men are exceptionally talented offensively, and I just don't know how a team like Niagara has the horses to be able to stop Cam and Pat. And honestly, this may be another game sort of like some of the earlier games we saw this season where Cam doesn't go for 20 and 10, at least, I'll be shocked. And it may be a game where we look back on it and we're like, if he wanted, 30 and 15, he could have gotten that. and it just depends on, sort of what the flow of the game gives to him.
And I think also with Niagara, right, when you look at their schedule, we talk about our schedule a lot, and how much of a murderer's row that's coming. When you look at Niagara's schedule, we are easily the best team that they're going to face this year. We're obviously number one in KenPom, but they only have one other team in the top 100 that they face, and that is VCU on December 15th. If you even want to go further, Jason, if you want to just go to the top 200 teams in KenPom, you only add 3 more teams: Siena and Iona, who they see in conference, and Duquesne, who they played already. So they're not playing a lot of good teams. And so Duke will be the most physical team that they will experience this season. So we'll save some of the things to watch for later on, because we're going to kind of combine those two into one segment at the end. But I wanted to note that their schedule makes this their biggest game of the year when it comes to their non-conference schedule, and it's clearly one that they feel they can get some lessons from before they hit the conference portion of their schedule, and hope that will carry them to maybe surprise some people and be better than 12th out of 13th in the MAAC. Last word to you, Jason.
There's not a lot more needed to be said about this. I will go ahead and point out that Ken Pomeroy projects the Blue Devils to win this game 88-56, so about a 32-point kind of margin. This will be a real good game for Duke to work on some things. You need to occasionally play game. Duke can't play every game against other power conference teams, and these are good times for to experiment a little bit early in the year. Hey, is Caden ready to try and do this? Is Nick Hemenia ready to try and do that? How much more can we get Darren Harris to do? Those are the kind of things that I'll be focused on in this game. And I know, Donald, that in the back half of this podcast, you're going to talk more about what you want to see from Duke in this contest. But on the other hand, these are also quite often very fun games to watch from the standpoint of fans who want to see highlights and other exciting things.
Absolutely. That game on Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern time on the ACC network. We're going to pause right here, take a quick break. As we mentioned, on the other side, we're going to talk about Howard, what they bring to the table, and there are things to watch for both games as we hit the Brotherhood Run this weekend. So stay tuned.
Hey, this is Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast, here to tell you that Michelob Ultra, the official beer partner of the NBA, is bringing NBA fans closer than ever this season with chances to win great prizes, including courtside tickets. Enter now at MichelobUltra.com/courtside. Michelob Ultra courtside 25 to 26. No purchase necessary. Open to U.S. residents 21 plus. Begins on October 1st, 2025 and ends on June 30th, 2026. Multiple entry periods. See official rules at MichelobUltra.com/courtside for free entry deadlines, prizes, and details.
Meet the computer you can talk to. With Copilot on Windows, working, creating, and collaborating is as easy as talking. Got writer's block? Share your screen with Copilot Vision to help spark inspiration, and use Copilot Voice to have a conversation and brainstorm ideas. Or maybe you need some tech help. With Copilot Vision, Copilot sees what you see. Let Copilot talk you through step-by-step guidance so you can master new apps, games, and skills faster. Try now at windows.com/Copilot.
This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Carvana lets you buy your next car on your terms. Explore a massive inventory online, filter for what matters, and find your perfect match. Then choose delivery to your home or pick it up at one of Carvana's iconic car vending machines. Every car also comes with a 7-day money-back guarantee, so you can make sure it's the right fit. Buy your car on Carvana. Delivery or pickup fees may apply. Limitations and exclusions may apply. See our 7-day return policy at Carvana.com.
Carvana. This is a real good story about Bronx and his dad, Ryan, real United Airlines customers.
We were returning home, and one of the flight attendants asked Bronx if he wanted to see the flight deck and meet Captain Andrew.
I got to sit in the driver's seat.
I grew up in an aviation family, and seeing Bronx kind of reminded me of myself when I was that age.
That's Andrew, a real United pilot.
These small interactions can shape a kid's future.
It felt like I was the captain.
Allowing my son to see the flight deck will stick with us forever.
That's how good leads the way.
Oh, Hilton stay, your beds are soft and cozy. No lumpy couch, no stiff futon, no shower line at crack of dawn. Oh, Hilton stay, oh, Hilton stay.
When you want holiday comfort you can count on, it matters where you stay. Enjoy comfortable rooms and friendly service when you stay with Hilton instead. Save up to 25% this season when you book with Hilton. Hilton for the stay. Terms apply.
We are back, and we shift our attention to the game on Sunday against the Howard Bison, and we're going to preview that game as well. The Howard Bison out of the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference, or the MEAC, and they are coached by none other than friend of the pod, Kenny Blakeney, who is in, I believe, his 5th year at Howard. That game again, 4 p.m.
It's his seventh year.
7th year.
7th year at Howard, and by the way, he made back-to-back tourneys in 2023 and 24. Kenny's done a really nice job at Howard.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know people around here, obviously being in DC, we get to see a lot. He's really been in tune with the community. This Brotherhood Run is something that is near and dear to him. They're having, I know, luncheons down there at Duke where he combined, and he always has a day here where Duke DC comes out to represent for Duke and for Howard, for Kenny Blakeney at a game. So he really enjoys this sort of thing. He knows it's going to be a big test for his Bison club. This game being at 4 p.m. on ACC Network, like I said, less than 48 hours between the start of the Niagara game and the start of the Howard game. So this is going to be not necessarily a Final Four type atmosphere or type of opponent, but the structure is there. And I think that's part of setting this tournament up this way. Let's get into what Howard has done so far this year. They're 2-3 on the season. Funny enough, Jason, they've had 4 home games. They opened by hosting Missouri. Usually when I saw that, I had to read that twice because I thought they would just go on the road to a big team like that. But their big game so far has been hosting Missouri. They lost 88-67 there. They faced UDC, which is the University of the District of Columbia. They are not ranked, ladies and gentlemen. They beat them pretty bad. Grambling State, they lost by 3. Alcorn State, they won by 8. And then their last game a few days ago against Stetson, or at Stetson, their lone road game so far, they lost by 4. And as we mentioned, they will face Niagara on Saturday before they face us on Sunday. So while we only have less than 48 hours between games, they're going to be less than 24 hours for their game. They're 319th in KenPom. And Jason, I'll hand it to you for the metrics. Again, you'll talk about, I'm sure, very soon. This team might be even shorter than Niagara.
Yeah, Donald. So one thing about Howard is they're picked to finish 2nd in the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference this year. Kenny Blakeney, as I said earlier, they made back-to-back tourneys a few years ago. This is he's got this program doing some really, really interesting things. And Howard is led by senior forward Bryce Harris. This dude is really good. He's 6'4". Dude is a fighter, and he will score all over the floor. A year ago, he was the MEAC, the conference preseason player of the year, but he got hurt. He only played in like 7 games for them. So he got a redshirt year. He is now in his 5th year. He has been at Howard his entire career. This is a kid who's clearly dedicated to that program. And I just love that about him. He's a special player. He's again expected this year to be one of the best players in the entire conference, and for sure the best player on Howard's team. When they played, you mentioned the game against Missouri, and by the way, huge hat tip to Missouri, to Dennis Gates, the head coach there, for going ahead scheduling a road game at Howard. I mean, just really classy on their part. But in the game against Missouri, Bryce Harris scored 27 points. This is a dude who can play at a high level against really good opponents. On the season, Bryce Harris is averaging almost 23 points per game, almost 8 rebounds per game. Again, 6'4", but averaging close to 8 rebounds per game. Far and away their leading scorer, far and away their leading rebounder. By the way, close to 3 assists, better than 3 assists per game. This guy's doing it all for them, close to 2 steals per them. 2 steals per game. Bryce Harris fills up the box score, plays heavy minutes. He is the key to everything Howard tries to do. He's also hitting almost 48% from 3 on the season. Now, look, he's a good shooter. He's a dangerous shooter. But this is not someone who I would expect, Like if you look at his history, he hasn't been like a 42, 45% 3-point shooter in the past. I think that maybe this number that's 47.6 that he's at, that may not be sustainable over the whole season. But man, first of all, he's going to take a ton of shots against Duke, and it's going to be a really, really interesting matchup, I think. I would bet that Dame Sarr gets the call. You'll probably see Caleb Foster on him some. But Duke shutting down Bryce Harris will be one of the big keys for this contest. The point guard, and I know you want to talk about this kid in a second, the point guard for Howard is Cam Gillis. He came over to them from Lehigh. A really nice point guard. He's just 5'11", super quick, very creative with his passing. He gets like 5 to 6 assists per game. He also commits a lot of turnovers. Like he's a dangerous player. And as we get into the metrics a little while on about Howard, I'll discuss the fact that this is a team that commits a lot of turnovers. But Donald, you saw him play in high school, right?
Yeah, so he played at Sidwell Friends, and I believe they overlapped with Caden Lewis. So I got to see him when he was more of a senior, and then have kind of followed him through my buddy Jarrett when he was at Lehigh. But him coming back to Howard is a big deal, him returning home. Let me tell you, Jason, he's 5'11". He plays with the heart of an Allen Iverson. Now, let me be clear. He is not an Allen Iverson. Nobody is. Nobody is the answer or the question. But this guy has that kind of heart. Tough-nosed, can get downhill fast. As you mentioned, he can create, and he tries to create. And now he's going to turn the ball over. But he has a lot of heart. And for a guy 5'11", he's going – think about this, Jason. He is maybe a slight comparable to Marcus Burton, right? The type of guard that we're going to have to see. Yeah, like a Marcus Burton who's, again, 5'11", but we, as our guards, who are shortest guard is 6'4", Caden Boozer is 6'4", you're going to have to learn how to play with guys that are smaller and are going to be running around. So this is a good test in that sense for our guards to try and figure out how to keep a smaller guard like him in front of him, especially one who's going to try and say, I don't care that everyone else on the court is 7 inches taller than me. I'm going to go right at him.
I like it. So the two guys I think you need to watch the most for Howard are, as I mentioned, Bryce Harris and then Cam Gillis, who you just talked about. The other person to be on the lookout for a little bit, they've got a junior guard named Alex Cotton. He takes a ton of threes, and he hits them. He is hitting them at a 46% rate on this season. I mentioned the game against Missouri. He was 6 of 12 from 3 against Missouri earlier this year. So Alex Cotton is another guy who, these guys are dangerous for Howard. Let's get to the bigs. So they got one kid who's 6'10". He's a freshman. He's from Lithuania. I'm not going to pronounce his name. I'm not going to try. He's such an outlier from everybody else on the team because he's 6'10", and there's no one else taller than like 6'6" on the roster. And he's just a freshman. He's not, like I looked at his stats, he's not a big rebounder yet. Like he's a kid who's, hoping to grow into his body a little bit and get better as time moves on. He'll play against Duke. They're going to need to show a little bit of size to Pat and Cam, but he's not a guy who plays more than half he's not a starter. He doesn't play more than half their minutes. So for the most part, they are starting guys who are 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", and size is just going to be huge. I mean, their tallest players in their starting lineup are basically looking eye to eye against Duke's smallest starters. And Duke is going to be bigger. And by bigger, I don't mean 1 or 2 inches, like 4 inches probably at every position on the floor, virtually every minute of this game. Howard is one of the 20 smallest teams in college basketball. And that's just going to be a problem for them in this game.
Now, I will say the center, the 6'10" guy, is going to start. He does start their games. He gets about 17 to 20 minutes a game, but he's not a huge factor offensively. And I think, as you mentioned against Niagara, they're going to have even more issues guarding our bigs inside. And like you said, he's not he may be taller, but he's not wide or have the strength to kind of be the guy inside for Howard. I think the other thing is he kind of has to be in the MEAC. He kind of has to be the lone wolf inside because, as you mentioned, there's nobody else in this roster that's taller than 6'6". So you're having some wings having to kind of go down low, and that's going to be the hugest mismatch is between Cam Boozer and Pat Gongba and even Malik Brown when he's in the game. They only have one guy who's that height to kind of box with them. Who else is going to go with them? That's going to be their biggest question.
Let's get to the metrics really quickly. There's not a lot to say here. As I mentioned, really poor turnover team. Higher than a 21% turnover rate. That means more than 1 out of every 5 possessions ends with Howard making a turnover. But they are quick, and on defense, they're very, very good at forcing turnovers. One of the top 50 teams in the country at getting steals. Duke does need to be careful against these guys. They will try and be opportunists. They will take risks, but sometimes those risks end up giving them a reward. Thus far on the season, Howard is allowing teams, this is an outrageous number, Donald. Teams are hitting 41.2% from three. That's a wow kind of number. If your opponents are hitting 41% from three against you, it is just really hard to win games. Now, last year, Howard was pretty decent at defending the three. They weren't like great, but they weren't terrible at it. So I think maybe this 41% that we've seen on the season so far for Howard, that may just be a small sample size statistical outlier. At least, I kind of hope for Howard's sake, I kind of hope that is the case. And then I wanted to note something. We talked about how challenged they are from a height standpoint. They don't let it make them into a terrible rebounding team. Believe it or not, Howard gets almost 33% of their offensive rebounds, of their missed shots. That's not like great, but that's not terrible. And they do a pretty good job. They only allow opponents to get about 30% of defensive rebound, of offensive rebound chances, so to speak. My bottom line on Howard is that even though they're going to be way shorter than Duke, these are guys who fight. These are guys who they're not just going to, oh, well, that guy's bigger than me, he's getting the rebound. They're going to box you out. They're going to try and get it. They're going to go for rebounds, especially on the defensive boards. Howard is a not terrible rebounding team. Considering their size, that is really, really impressive.
I think the one thing you mentioned, the fact that they allow a huge shooting percentage from three, they don't really allow you to shoot a lot of threes. It's not like teams are shooting 50% of their shots from beyond the arc and hitting them. It's more around 38%. So there's still, the heart is there to try and force you to take a two where they think they may have a better chance. But again, when it comes to Duke with the size mismatch, maybe that's something they may want us to do, is hope that we have a bad shooting night and force us outside instead of keeping the ball in.
By the way, the last thing I wanted to mention, I completely forgot to mention this, and I was just reminded as you were talking. One really interesting thing about Howard is they force you to go one-on-one. The assist rate against Howard, like Howard's defensive assist rate, is only 40%. That's top 25 in the country. Now, assist rate isn't necessarily like the most important, even though you and I pay attention to it a lot. It isn't like the most crucial stat toward winning and losing ball games. There are a lot of teams who have a low assist rate because they just let people go one-on-one and get past them and score easily. And that could kind of be the case here with Howard. But it's just interesting to know. Look, anytime you've got something about one of these teams that is, Howard is a team that's in the bottom 50 or so teams in the country. If they're top 25 at something, it is worth noting. And they are really, really good at preventing the other team from getting assists. Again, a lot of that is they're allowing guys to go one-on-one and get their baskets on their own. But Duke is a team that, for the most part, Donald, tries to work the ball around. We're looking for passes to create open shots. Howard is very good at preventing that.
So as we move in, and as I mentioned, we're going to kind of look, Jason, and I'll let you chime in as well, at both of these games and the things to kind of watch. And I've kind of narrowed it down to three major things that I want to see over the course of this weekend. The first thing is, and we've talked about it in the first few games of the season, is the fact that we have not done well at finishing inside. We've missed a lot of bunnies. So let's finish them. These are two games where we have a huge size advantage. There should be a better percentage at finishing around the rim. Now, would that mean less in the form of offensive rebounds? Maybe. But I think we'll take making it the first time and going down and setting up on defense. I think the second thing, Jason, is working on making more of our shots. And it's not, again, I'm not too upset at the distribution of twos versus threes so far this season, but it feels like sometimes the shot selection hasn't been quite there. And this is something that we can obviously work on throughout the season, but I think this weekend it'll be great to work the ball around, get good shots, and see if we can make it. We're going to be in the friendly confines of Cameron Indoor all weekend long, so we'll be able to work on things and do things that maybe won't translate when you're on the road or at a neutral site. And then the last thing that I have, the last major thing that I have, is I mentioned before that this is not an NCAA tournament setting, but it is an NCAA tournament structure in the sense that you have 2 games in 3 days. Let's get out to some good starts. That is going to be super important later on in the season when we have these Saturday, Monday back-to-backs, when we have these the ACC tournament where we hopefully will have 3 games in 3 days, and then the NCAA tournament where you have 2 games in 48 hours is going to be important as you manage minutes. If we're going to be playing 9 guys, you want to make it where we kind of, get out to a comfortable lead early. We're able to withstand it, and then we also are able to get our guys out to keep them fresh for the next one. That's obviously going to be super important for the Niagara game as we move into the Howard game, but I think it's going to be important throughout the season. If we have a chance to take a team out, let's do it. Let's do it quickly. And that way we can work on things. We can get some of our guys in that are further down the bench and get them some playing time and get them some confidence, because we're going to need everybody this season. And I'm hoping that we see a team that comes out determined to have a good show. Obviously, Greg Paulus and Kenny Blakeney are going to get their flowers, and they should. And that's the point of this Brotherhood Run. But unfortunately for them, these games do count. So we need to play like they count. We need to go out and take care of business, take care of it early, so that we can maximize the usage of all of the players on this team and get it where everybody can gain some confidence this weekend.
I'll tell you the thing that I'm kind of hoping to see in this game, and maybe it's too soon, and maybe I'm asking for something that these guys aren't really capable of this year. I would love to see Dame Sarr and Nick Hemenia be a little more able to create on their own, create for themselves. I just want to get those 2 guys a little more involved in the offense, other than just being a catch and shoot kind of guy, a guy who's just hanging out on the perimeter waiting for someone else to feed him the ball. If we are able to begin to either one of those guys, if we unlock either one of those guys, that is huge for Duke. And then the other one is, can we get another game where Caleb Foster takes 10 shots? CFOS's defense is so important to this team. And he's obviously a leader, and he's physical, and he does a million little things right. I just keep on waiting for CFOS to unlock a little more of that. When he penetrates and drives, he seems to score a large amount of the time. I'd love if he'd do it just a little tiny bit more. I don't need Cam to go for 35 again. I don't need Isaiah to go for 24 and hit 6 3-pointers. We know that can happen. Heck, I'll even go so far as I don't need Pat to score over these small guys left and right. We've seen that Pat can do those kind of things. I'm looking for the other guys to take a little more of an assertive role on offense, because I think that'd be very important for them. And then I'd just love to see Darren Harris, get even more run. I wanted him to be rewarded for all the work he's put in. And I'd love to see him hit his first couple threes. He's been hitting threes, but it tends to be late in games. I'd love to see him hit some threes early. That'd be fun for him.
I think especially for, you mentioned 3 guys, Dame Sarr, Nick Hemenia, and Darren Harris. For those guys to see the ball go through the net early, I think will help them have monster games, because I feel like the confidence that they get from those, as you mentioned, Darren Harris has been pouring it on late, right? He sees the ball go in, and it's like 5 minutes left. He goes on a little tear. Nick Hemenia starts distributing the ball, and but it's usually in the second half. If these guys are doing that when they first check in the game in the first half, I also want it to be where this, because I don't necessarily look at all the different pundits and stuff like that, but there was a lot of talk after the game against Kansas that Duke can be exposed because they aren't necessarily one of the better teams in the country. And I was watching the game last night between Arizona and UConn, and everybody was like, well, these 2 teams are clearly better than Duke. I don't think that's the case, but I also think that both of those teams are capable of going out on fast starts every single game, and we have not yet proven that we can do so. And so it's a lot about crawling back and teams maybe letting us back into it, whatever the haters want to say. But I would like to get out to a fast start, because I think that will help calm nerves. And also, I think, as you mentioned, will help everybody kind of settle in and be able to work on the confidence part of things. Because if you have a 10-point lead, a 20-point lead in the first 10 minutes of the game, there's a lot of things you can work on to make that a 30-point lead, or even just to make it where all these guys get touches on the basketball that you just mentioned. So this is a confidence building weekend. We need to not take them for granted, but we definitely want to play our game, and let's see how the Brotherhood may run. That will do it for this episode of the Duke Basketball Roundup, DBR Bites, episode 122 in the can. We'll be back at some point during the weekend to recap everything. Obviously, we got 2 basketball games. We have a football game, and then we have the Thanksgiving break where Jason will be with family. I will be with family. We're going to figure all that out, and we'll get back to you. But stay tuned to our feed. Of course, after each game, send your headlines, dbrpodcast@gmail.com. So until then, for Jason, I'm Donald. Now it's time for the Duke Band to play us out and take us home.